There is nothing in the Constitution that has a wall of separation between the church and the state.
All right, for the last item on our agenda, we have the Office of the Attorney General, Raul Labrador. We'll wait until he gets a clear path. Attorney General, please come forward, state your name and title for the record.
Perfect. Good morning. I'm Attorney General Raul Labrador, co-chairs, chairs, and members of the committee. Thank you for having me here this morning. In honor of the State of the Union last night, I'm going to speak for 2 hours, and I'm going to make this the longest presentation you've had all year. I know that it's not been an easy session. You're being asked to make hard cuts across state government, and every agency director and constitutional officer standing where I am today wants to make the case that their office is the exception. What I want to do today is to show you what my office has produced over the last 3 years, what it has cost the people of Idaho, and how we have been able to actually bring more money to the state of Idaho than we have spent. I have tried to run this office the way a fiscal conservative should. We have returned a significant amount of money to the state every year. We have built new capacity without asking for new dollars. In fact, as you have probably already noticed, I did not come last year seeking anything above our maintenance budget. In fact, I was not planning to testify this year because we were not asking for anything above our maintenance budget. My goal has been to do more for the state without having to ask for additional resources. I admit that I probably should have been more clear in my letter to this committee. When the governor did not recommend a 3% holdback for our office, I did not expect that our office would have that 3% holdback. However, when this committee took action on maintenance budgets, our office was hit with $1.6 million ongoing reduction for FY27. This was equal to the governor's 3% reduction, plus the additional 2%. Honestly, I should have been stronger in my letter, and I apologize to the committee that I now have to come before you and explain how it would devastate my office. We simply will not be able to maintain the exceptional work we have carried out in defending the legislature's laws and protecting the citizens of Idaho. I'm asking for $980,000 of that reduction to be restored so we can continue doing the great work my attorneys and staff are doing. While most state agencies and constitutional offices can trim contracts, they can delay projects or reduce overhead to preserve their workforce, the Office of Attorney General cannot do this. Our budget structure is 89% personnel costs and 92% general fund. Our attorneys are already getting paid significantly less than other attorneys in the market. In fact, just one little example, my son-in-law who graduated from law school 3 years ago makes more than every one of my attorneys in my office, including his father-in-law. So we can absorb minor reductions, but anything significant means salary reductions through unpaid furlough days for every employee in this office, or reducing staff that is increasingly being asked every day to do more and more by this legislature. Our office returns to the state more money than it spends. Over the last 3 years, the Office of Attorney General recovered or settled $242 million for Idaho taxpayers against tobacco companies, pharmaceutical giants, opioid manufacturers, and other companies that have harmed Idahoans with dangerous products and deceptive marketing. Our current year appropriation is just over $35 million. For every dollar you have spent on us over the last 3 years, we have returned $2.31 on average per year. As I explained in my letter to the committee, a $1.3 million reduction this year means that I will have to ask my employees to take 11 furlough days between now and the end of the fiscal year. And the $1.67 million reduction next fiscal year would mean 14 furlough days impacting our 227 employees. This means that I would have to ask them to take between 2 to 3 weeks of unpaid time off or close to a 5% cut in their salaries. This would be devastating to our employees, and my office will lose significant staff. In the alternative, I will have to eliminate 12 positions from our staff to make this work. This type of reduction is a cut to the people reducing record ICAC arrests and prosecutions, defending Idaho's laws at the state and federal courts, and returning record amounts of money to Idaho taxpayers. I want to tell you what we're doing with the money that you have given us. First, I'm going to talk about our ICAC and criminal cases. As you can see here, I'm going to give some data about some of the great things that we have done since I've become your Attorney General. One area of high importance is our Internet Crimes Against Children Unit and Task Force, which my office has direct statutory enforcement authority over. That means we investigate, arrest, and prosecute the people who exploit children online, who view, create, or distribute child sexual abuse material, who try to lure kids for horrific purposes. When I took office in January of 2023, the ICAC unit had roughly 1,400 unreviewed cyber tips sitting in a backlog, and that backlog was actually increasing exponentially. Before we cleared it, a tip about a child being actively abused could sit for days, weeks, sometimes months before anyone looked at it. That child was still being harmed every single day that tip sat unreviewed. Not every tip is a case, I want to explain that. But we were just not getting to them quick enough to save some of these children. I brought in new leadership, I restructured the unit, and asked this legislature for targeted resources to fix it in my first year. Because of that, we eliminated the entire backlog. We now review every new cyber tip that comes into our office within 24 hours. And when a tip comes in about a child being actively harmed, we get there in time to save them, which we have done multiple times under my administration. The ICAC unit made more arrests in 2024 than the previous 3 years combined. And we kept growing from there in 2025 with even more ICAC arrests. Before I took office, if you look at this first chart, the unit made 19 arrests in 2021 and 13 in 2022. My first year, we made 19 arrests. After the changes and restructuring and the resources that you gave to my office to implement these changes, we saw vast improvements in 2024 with 55 arrests, and just last year we had 68 arrests. To be clear, our ICAC unit is made up of 11 core affiliate agencies with dedicated investigators whose sole job is ICAC cases and who we pay their salary and benefits. Those 68 arrests are cases they led directly. Our broader ICAC task force includes additional participating agencies statewide that we work closely with. See if I can do this right. Okay, yes. And together with our ICAC unit, they made 143 arrests in 2025, again reflecting an increase from 2022, 2023, and 2024. At the same time that we are doing more, as you can see on the slide, the volume of cyber tips we receive just keeps climbing. So we are actually receiving more tips at the same time that we're working on all of these cases. In 2024, we received 3,793, and in 2025, we received 6,117, the most in Idaho history. That is a 61% increase in tips in the state of Idaho. But as you can see, from 2023, the tips continue to increase, but our backlog remains at zero. So as before I became the Attorney General, the cyber tips were increasing and the backlog was increasing. Now it has been reduced to within 24 hours. We have been able to continue that. On our recommendation, the legislature also expanded the child sexual abuse material statute to cover AI-generated content. We have already used that law to prosecute offenders. And we also added an electronic storage detection canine named Badger that helps our investigators find child sexual abuse material that is hidden in the homes of these perpetrators. Some people have argued that that's the best Labrador in the office. So I'm providing numbers because this is a budget committee and we have to talk about the big picture. We have to talk about resources and our need for resources. But before I move on, I want you to know that what these numbers actually mean. In the last 3 years, we have saved at least 10 live victims. These are children who were actually being abused by the people who were sharing the videos and images online. Consider the infant in East Idaho sexually abused by a caretaker who recorded the abuse and shared the sexual abuse material with another man in Idaho. Both are now in prison. Think about the 10-year-old child who lived on the East Coast but was victimized over the internet by a man here in Idaho through extremely graphic and sexual conversations. This perpetrator is now in prison. Remember the infant and 8-year-old in South Central Idaho abused by a trusted adult who recorded the abuse and then shared the sexual abuse material with others. A child in the home learned from a presentation that he heard from our ICAC unit that our canines can smell electronic devices, including cameras, and told our investigator, "I just don't want any more cameras in the house." The man who placed those cameras and sexually abused the 2 children is now in prison. The ICAC task force has arrested and prosecuted many perpetrators over the last 3 years who re-victimized sexual abuse survivors by watching the videos over and over again. We caught all of these criminals because we are able to review these tips within 24 hours instead of letting them sit for weeks or even months. When I came into office, I also changed how we work with county prosecutors. Under the former administration, it was a take it or leave it approach. When they had local prosecutors who were asking for assistance, not just in these kind of cases, but in any kind of case, they would either give up local total control of the case or the office wouldn't help them. That did not help Idahoans. I wanted our office to be a true partner to our counties, so I changed the policy. We now offer assistance without taking cases over or requiring counties to give up control. When the Leyte County prosecutor asked for help prosecuting Brian Koberger for killing 4 University of Idaho students, our top prosecutor in the Chief of Criminal Division spent countless hours assisting them while Leyte County remained in charge. And we didn't ask for any additional resources to do that. When Fremont and Madison County asked for help prosecuting Chad Daybell in a capital case, our top prosecutor joined them for the 2-month trial. And when a new Boise County prosecutor needed help in a sex crimes case involving multiple victims, we loaned him our most experienced prosecutor and our victim witness coordinator. In every instance, our office paid for our people's time and redistributed the work they left back in the office. Together, this new approach and our office's direct statutory authority have significantly expanded both the volume and scope of cases we're prosecuting. We continue to prosecute public corruption, insurance fraud, all the other kind of cases that we were doing before, but we have added ICAC cases and unemployment fraud to that list. The year before I took office, the special prosecutions units only filed 8 cases. In 2024, we filed 41 cases, and in 2025, we filed 101 cases. Now I'm going to move on to the civil litigation and solicitor generals. Many of you know in Idaho, we have a unique opportunity that you guys give us every single day that you're in session. We have a great legislature willing to pass good conservative laws, but we sit in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So that combination means that we have an uphill battle defending every law that is passed by this legislature. When I ran for this office, I promised that I would be aggressive in my defense of state laws, and we have been doing it with some great success. When Idaho gets sued over its laws, our Civil Litigation and Constitutional Defense Division handle those matters. The number of cases has increased over years. This division handles the cases in both state and federal trial courts. When the state cases are appealed to the Idaho Supreme Court, to the Ninth Circuit, or the United States Supreme Court, they require an entirely different level of expertise. Appellate advocacy is a specialized discipline, which is why I established the Office of Solicitor General to handle these matters. This team focuses exclusively on high-level appellate work. I created this team through internal reorganization without requesting any new funding or additional positions. To be clear, I created a whole new division with 4 fantastic attorneys without asking for any enhancements in my budget. Why was this necessary? When our laws are targeted by teams of lawyers, they come from big law firms. They come from San Francisco, from New York, from Washington, D.C., from Boise's largest law firm, from all over the country. Out-of-state attorneys that are competing against my attorneys are billing over $1,000 per hour for appeals and pay their first-year associate more than my office's most experienced attorneys. Even some of the nonprofits and local law firms involved in these cases pay much better than the state. Yet our attorneys are rivaling, competing with, and outperforming them every day on a state salary. The clearest example of this work is the Fairness in Women's Sports Act to protect women's athletics. We have aggressively defended it through the court system, and when the Ninth Circuit ruled against us, we petitioned the United States Supreme Court to hear the case, and they accepted. In January, we stood before the United States Supreme Court and forcefully advocated on behalf of the state. That is precisely what I have built our office to do. Of note, in the last 3 years that I've been Attorney General, my office has gone to the United States Supreme Court 4 times on important matters stemming from legislation passed by this body. Other than the typical death penalty appeals that were done in the past, to the best of my knowledge, the prior administration took cases to the U.S. Supreme Court approximately 4 times in 20 years that they were in office. One final point on litigation, and this is about money. I have also made it a priority to keep more litigation in-house rather than hiring private attorneys. The prior administration, on average, handled 9 risk cases. Risk cases are those cases where the state is potentially liable for money damages, and those usually go to private attorneys in the state of Idaho. On average, the Office of Attorney General was handling only 9. Private attorneys often handle these cases. In 2025 alone, we handled 26 of these cases, and we're already at 5 this year, just in 2 months. By doing this, we avoid paying approximately $185 per hour for private attorneys instead of the average salary of $51 per hour plus benefits. We're saving taxpayers a significant amount of money, and I have done that without asking for additional resources. I want to finish with the Consumer Protection Division. I also reform our Consumer Protection Division without asking for more resources. I already explained to you that our office recovered or settled $242 million for Idaho taxpayers in the last 3 years, which is 2.3 times our annual budget. But that's not all. This past year, I appointed a new director of consumer protection without asking for additional resources, and we have fundamentally changed how this division operates. Just like we did with ICAC, we eliminated a consumer complaint backlog that had been accumulating for years and restructured our intake process so we now respond to every complaint within 24 hours. Because of these changes, we recovered more money for Idahoans directly who have been harmed. In 2023, we recovered $176,000. In 2024, that dropped to $149,000. In 2025, we recovered $1.1 million for this is directly to consumers. We're also going after businesses violating Idaho's consumer protection laws and at a rate that is unprecedented. In 2023, we did 8 enforcement actions. In 2024, 17, and last year we did 49 enforcement actions. So we're doing a lot of work with the money that you're giving me. We've launched Report Idaho Scams. We've processed 2,174 complaints, and we've held 12 outreach events across the state teaching Idahoans how to protect themselves from scams. I'm very proud of all the things my attorneys and staff have been doing without asking for anything over a maintenance budget over the last few years. I want to be clear that I understand what you're going through. I understand your budget constraints, but I'm just requesting that you restore $980,000 ongoing to our FY27 maintenance and to our 26 budget that you took away so we can continue to do the great things that our office has been doing for the people of Idaho. With 92% coming from the general fund and 89% of that budget being salaries, this will only lead to pay decreases for my attorneys or the elimination of 12 permanent positions. We do not have contracts, overhead, or projects that we can cut to avoid staff reductions. I've already seen emails from some state agencies say, don't worry about it. Your salaries are not going to be cut. There's not going to be any layoffs. In my office, that will happen. We're already losing the compensation battle. Our attorneys could make more money in private practice. And we've been fortunate to hire some attorneys who have taken these pay cuts. Some large law firm attorneys are coming to our office to take these pay cuts. They couldn't afford to take more. By restoring $980,000, we can continue doing the work that you have asked us to do to defend our laws. And we can do it in a very fiscally conservative manner. Thank you for the opportunity to address these issues today, and I will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Attorney General. Is there questions? Representative Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney General Labrador, first off, thank you. You and your office do fantastic work for the state of Idaho. We're all excited that you're in that office. Nobody can complain about what you guys are doing. Personally, this year, your office has been fantastic in helping me with some legislative things and questions that I've had. So thank you again very much for the hard work you guys are doing. We all appreciate it. I wanted to talk to you about the ICAC a little bit.
Yeah.
And just kind of get your opinion on what we're seeing here. I mean, again, you guys are doing fantastic work. Your response is incredible. The proof's in the pudding, right? So do you think we're seeing more crimes actually being committed, or are we actually just catching the crimes at a better rate now?
Do you mind if I have the expert
Please.
talk about it? This is Jeff Nye, the chief of our criminal division.
If you would just state your name and title for the record.
Of course. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jeff Nye. I'm the chief of the Criminal Law Division in the Idaho Attorney General's office. Mr. Chairman, Representative Harris, that's a complicated question, but I think I can safely answer both. We are, across the nation, we are seeing an increase in these types of crimes, primarily because access is becoming easier and easier to get to the content. We call it child sexual abuse material. You may have heard it referred to as child pornography. But in addition to that, we are more successful in finding the people who are creating, distributing, possessing that material in Idaho, which is why you've seen such a dramatic increase in the arrests. So yes, the cyber tips have continued to go up, but our number of arrests reflect that we're also just doing a better job.
Thank you. Senator Carlson.
Thank you, Chairman. And AG Labrador, I just want to thank you for all that you and your office are doing on behalf of the legislature. I know we've been passing some very, very challenging legislation for you, and I just want to say thank you for all that you're doing. We really, truly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Senator Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General Labrador, my question is about incarcerated illegal aliens in the state of Idaho. I understand there's about 200 to 220 that are incarcerated in our prisons, which would be costing the state of Idaho $6 to $7 million a year. I'm wondering if we could develop some sort of a program with the federal government where if we release these prisoners out of Idaho prisons, if we could release them to the federal government and they could be immediately deported and we could relieve our prison systems of $6 to $7 million a year in expenses.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hart, it's not a question I came prepared to talk about. I'm a former immigration lawyer, as you know, and my understanding, and it's been years since I've practiced immigration law, but my understanding is that there's generally a hold on every prisoner who is here illegally. And I believe, and this is where I'm a little bit unprepared, I believe it's a policy of the state right now to have them finish their sentence before they release them on that immigration hold to the whatever country of origin they're from. So I think it would require a change in your policies as a state, and each country is different, because one of the reasons I think that in the past we have require them to remain in prison here is, you could have a country where they could go, where the prison system may actually be harsher. It might be good to have them in prison. Other systems, they're just going to be released and they're not going to do any time. So that's a policy decision that you're going to have to look at. But you would have to change your policy in the state to allow them to be returned, because immigration is waiting for their sentence to be finished, so you hand them over on the immigration hold.
A follow-up?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we're the policymakers.
Yes.
The legislative branch is the policymakers. So I guess the follow-up question would be, can your office work with the legislature and maybe come up with a framework that we could put in place, that maybe in some countries we can do this, or for prisoners that are originating from some countries we could do it, maybe other countries we can't. But our census in the Idaho prisons have gone up by 400, and of course we're struggling to pay for that. So I'm looking for a way for us to get our corrections budget down to save money for the state of Idaho, and I think your office could probably help us do that.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hart, we are more than happy to look at that. There's going to be some legal issues, some jurisdictional issues, but we can look at that question if you would like us to.
Okay, thank you.
That. Yeah,
Thank you. Representative Pesky.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Attorney General. You mentioned $242 million that your office brought in last year. Are those from cases?
over the last sorry, Mr. Chairman, Representative Petsky, over the last 3 years.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you. Can you clarify, were those cases that were won in the last 3 years, or are those from prior settlements? And could you get us a list of those?
Yes. Mr. Chairman, Representative Petsky, yeah, we can get a list of those. These are all cases in the Consumer Protection Division that are dealing with, these are mostly large national, multi-state litigation against opioid manufacturers, tobacco, all these different areas. So, for example, we usually get a yearly settlement from the tobacco industry. We actually received, I can't remember what the number was, it's something like $70 million, because we decided to actually settle we were behind in the litigation on tobacco settlements, and we actually did a major settlement with them that brought in $70 million the first year that I was in office. So these were all continuing litigation that we were going to court again and again and again for, and now for the next 10 years, we don't have to do that litigation. That's one example.
Follow-up.
Thank you, Chairman. Just maybe get us the list on what each of those cases was that's brought in this revenue and when that work was actually done. I want to make sure we're not counting stuff that's obviously from the past.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
Senator Winthrop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Attorney General, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
I have some questions, and usually we have the budget analyst up here, so I'm not sure if the Attorney General's ready or there's a financial person or maybe the budget analyst can answer this as well. Boy, I certainly appreciate what you're saying about staff. If I had a dime for every director who stood there and said, I'm going to have to furlough people, I'm losing people, I mean, it matters. So I do appreciate hearing that. When I look at the numbers in the budget book, I'm looking at appropriation and actual spent, and maybe this is where Ms. Bisharat can help, I don't know. But it seems like the actual is less than the appropriation, so we're not using it all. And I'm wondering where that's being transferred. Is it being put back into personnel, or are there operating expenses? And I know it's so hard right now. Everybody's tightening their belt. We got to all kind of jump in here and do that. So, I mean, I hear it, but I'm just kind of concerned and well, not concerned, just curious about those numbers.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, my understanding, but she's probably going to be much better than me, but I think every year we return money back to the state. So it's not spent, it's returned. That's why we were pretty confident that even though it would be difficult, that we could handle, the cut that we thought we were going to get without the 3%, because I think I've been pretty fiscally conservative with our budget. And I always tell my staff to make sure that we look at every expenditure, that we make sure that we're not wasting money. So we've been pretty fiscally conservative. So I felt that and that's why I also haven't been coming to ask for additional resources. So when I find efficiencies in the budget, I find one attorney who is maybe doing a job that maybe we could have half an attorney do. We're combining positions. But what I have been doing with that is if I find a half an attorney here or a position there, then I'm adding all that to the Civil Litigation Division and to the ICAC units. So what I'm worried about is that we have been so efficient over the last 3 years that now the only way to cut staff is to cut from the 2 areas where I have actually been adding attorneys that are doing so much good for the state. That's what I'm concerned about. Because I've already spent the last 3 years finding efficiencies, and there's been positions that I have transfer from one division to another so I can use the money that you give me more efficiently.
Bless you.
Follow up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and Attorney General. Really appreciate that. And again, the reason I'm asking the question maybe because I may not be reading the budget book correctly. So that's why I was suggesting that maybe the budget analyst might answer that and correct me. But again, bless you. I hear all the great works that you want to do, especially for children. There are so many staff members in our state who are struggling. In fact, someone met me in a crosswalk yesterday and said that she was selling plasma because her state employee salary was so low. So, man, I get it. What I'm curious about is in the actual expenditures by division by program, I might be reading it wrong, but it looks like there are unused monies that are being appropriated elsewhere from certain divisions, and it looks like the ICAC unit, but I hope not. But maybe just help me with that.
If you want to just say your name for the record and.
Chairman, for the record, my name is Janica Bisharat. I'm a budget and policy analyst with the Legislative Services Office. Chairman Senator Wintrow, in terms of preparation for this hearing, I went through and prepared the LSO slides as we normally would do, even though I wasn't giving a presentation today. So in your SharePoint drive are the typical slides that you see. Within that is that slide that you have on organizational structure that reports on the 5-year averages of personnel costs spent on personnel. And you can see in there that there is a 95% in FY20 or over the last 5 years, 95% spent on PC, which leaves 5% of their appropriated costs that's spent on that can be moved from PC into other areas because the Attorney General does have the ability to move between expenditure classes. So the appropriated amount is 26.6 million. So about 5% of that is either reverted or moved across and spent in other expenditure areas. In addition, it shows there that the fill rate is about, sorry, glasses, not glasses, is just over 93%. So about 6.5% there is, their vacancy rate. And so that money too is either moved into other areas and spent or reverted. To get to your specific question about where it's being spent, I would have to dig a little bit further into that. I'm not prepared to answer that question, but just to say there is money there that is either being moved or reverted.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. One more, just a comment.
Senator Wintrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Attorney General. I appreciate you standing there. I know it was hard for me to ask that question. Again, because you're a constitutional officer, and I totally respect that. We have a balance in different lanes of government, and I appreciate and respect the office. So it was difficult for me to ask that question in the first place. I guess what I'm struggling with is our state and all the budgets that have come up here. We've lost 3 people into deaths because of cuts. And I'm just trying to find the consistencies with all the other budgets as well. And so that's what I'm just trying to figure out is, can you actually take the tightening of the belt or not? So that's really the point of my question. So thank you so much for your patience and kindness to let me ask that.
Thank you. Senator Ward King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Attorney General Labrador. I want to tell you, I appreciate you being here and advocating for your staff and your employees. we haven't been able to hear that from some people. And frankly, at town hall last night, we had state employees in tears and saying they're going to be finding another job. They're picking up cans, aluminum cans. So I am just happy to see you here advocating for your employees, because these cuts are very, very challenging, and I think they're going to do great damage to our state. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, Attorney General, I really do appreciate you coming before this committee and kind of walking through, especially the ICAC and what you're doing within that program that has been amazing for the people of Idaho. And I do appreciate you defending the laws that this legislature passes and the wins that you've been able to have. The one thing, I've done a little research, and one thing I just point out to the committee, most attorney generals that I've been able to go through and find through other budgets, they've got a large amount of dedicated funds where we don't. So the Consumer Protection Fund, that one alone, most attorney generals, they utilize a large portion of that to dedicated funds. Now I know our law has a certain amount. We automatically transfer out of that to the general fund every single year. So as that money comes in, we take it back out, where a lot of other states actually have that tied up to where they actually have significant dedicated funds going for the attorney general. And that's one thing Idaho in the past has not actually looked at, but just figured I'd at least point that portion out as that we are unique, and I haven't found another state as of yet that just has a attorney general that is just relying on general fund aspects that way. So with that, thank you very much. If you have anything to close on, feel free.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members. I appreciate what you're doing. I was here during 2006 to 2010, so I know how difficult the work you're doing as a legislator, and I appreciate the work you're doing for the people of Idaho. Have a wonderful day.
All right, with that, we do not have any other business for today. Starting Friday, we will be shifting into completing budget settings. So from Friday on, it will just be working on setting all the budgets, all the enhancements. I know we have the two working groups, public safety and economic development. I do want to point out the Senate is going on the floor at 10:30. The House will be on at 11. But if the working groups could get working on some of that stuff, because we are setting those budgets on Friday, that'd be great. With that, we'll be adjourned until tomorrow morning at 8 a.m.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Moyle, District 10. Thanks for the opportunity to visit with you today. I'm sure you've all had a whole bunch of emails about this bill. Been pretty interesting, hasn't it? You know, we live in a state where we all make the laws. And sometimes when we make those laws, we put penalties in those laws. We say, if you do this, this is what happens if you break the law. Sometimes we don't. We pass a law and say, this is the law of the land, obey it, but there's no penalty. What we've found is we now have some public officials who openly say, there's no penalty, I'm not following the law. A lot of times you all don't even know what happened. It's been a concern of mine for quite a while. It doesn't make any sense for you to pass laws if people aren't going to obey them and if you can't enforce them. So what I tried to do with this bill was find a path that when laws are broken, that there's a penalty, that there's recourse, that we can ask or force the laws that you all pass to be enforced, to be the law of the land. As you can tell from your emails, there's a lot of people that aren't happy about that. I want to ask yourself a question. Why? Why? If you're obeying the law, this bill won't touch you. So what's the problem? Good question. Fully realizing that there is a whole bunch of opposition to this from some of our local taxing districts and state employees and others because it affects them, I know that we probably need to make some changes to get this bill through. I want to make it very clear. I'm bringing another bill back. And I hope to work with you and the others behind us to come up with a solution we can live with. But after I ask the chairman here in a minute, or this committee, to hold this subject to call of the chair. When this meeting ends, and you look at all those emails from cities and counties and everybody else complaining about this bill, ask yourself, why? Because if you're obeying the law, you don't have a problem. With that, Mr. Chairman, I would ask the committees to make a motion to hold this bill subject to call of the chair so we can have some time to work with our friends that are against this bill and see if we can find a path forward to accomplish the goal of making sure that the laws that you all pass are enforced and those who don't force them have some kind of a penalty for not obeying the law. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Committee, this is before you. I see a red light. Representative Schertz.
I'll make the motion,
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair. I move that we hold House Bill 743 to the call of the chair. Can I speak to it, or is it non-debatable?
You may speak to it.
I really appreciate the speaker. I think this is a problem many of us recognize of how we solve this problem, and I really appreciate the speaker, looking to us to work through this and find a good solution to this issue that I know we've had a lot of folks raise, and so I look forward to working with the speaker on this and figuring out a good path forward.
Thank you.
Representative Gannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of very serious problems with this bill are the fee shifting, where the Attorney General gets the attorney's fees, or shall get attorney's fees when the Attorney General prevails, but the public employee, who could be a police officer, could be a mayor, somebody else, they don't get attorney's fees if they win. And that is unfair and results in an unfair legal system overall, because the Attorney General has 100 lawyers that can be put into this work, and the employee might just be living paycheck to paycheck. So how are they going to afford a lawyer? And what lawyer is going to take the case if the lawyer isn't ever going to get paid? Because under this statute, you don't get paid. So I think that would be really helpful, and I'm trying to be helpful here.
Appreciate that.
The second big issue here is this criminal contempt thing, or contempt, which shall be and subject to punishment is provided by law. Now there's civil contempt and there's criminal contempt, and there's a lot of legal decisions on that. And with the way it's written now, it almost seems like you could be guilty of a criminal contempt, which is very serious. And the burden of proof is going to be preponderance of the evidence, which is a civil burden of proof instead of reasonable doubt. So there are a number of other concerns that we've gotten in emails, but those two could really give the Attorney General such power that just by threatening to file a lawsuit, just by sending a letter and saying, well, I'm looking to file a lawsuit against you because you're not running your department the way I think you should, it could be construed as being bullyism, because there is so much power there and so little power here on the part of a public employee. So the first thing that needs to be done with this is to balance the responsibility. And if there is inappropriate conduct by the Attorney General, then by golly, the Attorney General is going to pay, maybe personally, because they got these, it's personal to the employee. Well, maybe the Attorney General or the attorneys are going to have to pay personally too. I mean, it's just got to be equal. And right now it's very unequal. And I know that the Speaker is a good person and will work really hard to rectify some of these concerns.
I'll take that as debate in favor of the motion. Mr. Speaker, you need not respond.
No, I don't need to respond. I just remind everybody, just obey the law. It won't matter.
All right. Okay, see no, there's more red lights. Look at this. Okay, Representative Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And
do you have a question, or are we talking about the motion?
I would like to speak to the motion.
All right. Mr. Speaker, you may take a seat.
Thank you.
If it wasn't for the will of the bill's sponsor, I would have thought this was the wrong move. I would have thought that the move would have been to send this bill to the floor with a due pass. The fact that we have to debate here in Idaho the rule of law, obedience to the rule of law, the fact that we would have a fear that the Attorney General could enforce the rule of law is simply amazing to me. I guess I'm at a loss of words. I would have chose a different path, but because of the will of the bill's sponsor, then I will go along with the motion as it was requested to be done.
Representative Hill.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I had a comment. I think this is essential and needs to be decisive. The insubordination you see from certain folks that we've seen recently and close by, it needs to be decisive, and I think it's spot on. I think we're getting lost a little bit in the weeds. I think this is a really good bill. I think that a little discussion and maybe we could close up some of those gaps to make people comfortable, but we need this. We need to have this to decide these issues that we've had here recently.
Thank you. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one more comment is, we pass a ton of bills in this committee with big penalties, and we say, if we make the penalty higher, people won't violate the law. So I would hope that this committee, we're always passing more and more bills to throw people in prison or give them more time, and so, but when it comes to government, we don't think that maybe a high penalty will stop them from violating the law. So I just hope we keep that in mind as the law is set to obey it. And the punishment, if you don't break it, you don't get punished. So maybe the high punishment will make people think twice.
See no further red lights. We have a motion before us to hold H743 at the call of the chair. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. It's unanimous.
This bill, I think, it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.